Hello and welcome to this tutorial. Now, if you watched my last tutorial, you saw where I drew this Megatron with a mouse. And if you've been following that, you probably want to know how to colour it. So welcome back if that's the case. And if you're new and you just want to learn how to colour Lionheart, this video should help you. Right, so I'm going to go through my process of colouring Lionheart and how I go about it. I will look at a few different ways, but generally I will stick with my style. So here we are, we've got the Megatron line art. Now we know this is quite clean because I drew this with a mouse, so all the lines are pretty nice and crisp. So should hold up well to colouring. Right, so first of all, what I would do, I've got this line art on this layer here called ink. I would lock this layer. I do not want to accidentally draw on here. This has happened to me so many times. You wouldn't believe that I've flicked onto the ink to change the opacity or something like that, gone to carry on drawn over the ink. You have to undo, it's a pain in the bottom. It's not the end of the world, but it's just so much easier if you just lock them. Okay, so I will lock them. These are the sketch layers, I don't need those anymore. So I'll lock those off as well. Right, so you've got your ink layer. Now I would right click this and duplicate layer, and all the reason for this will come apparent in a minute. And where I've called the original ink, I will call this ink overlay. That way I know the difference between these two layers. Ink overlay I would drag to the top. I would unlock just for a second while I change this from normal to overlay, and then I would re-lock it. Anyway, so I've got the ink and the ink overlay now. Okay, so the colour layers are going to go between these two layers, and you'll see why at the end, because it gives you the option with that ink overlay to actually use a few different colouring techniques. But you need that over the top really, and it also, having that over the top helps you see where you're colouring. Right, so to create layers in between, you click the layer you want at the bottom, so it would be ink in this case, and you'll click new layer, which is, it's like a new piece of paper at the bottom here. I'm going to do that for 3 new layers. Okay, now these are going to be your base colour layers. So with Megatron, and I've already downloaded a picture of Megatron so I can have a look, I'm trying to look at what kind of colours I'm going to be looking. So the biggest colours are obviously going to be this silvery grey, this dark grey, and black. So they're going to be the main colours. Obviously there's reds in here, purples here, reds here. Those will be the extra layers at the end, but they're the small layers, so I'm not too worried about them at the moment. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to rename these layers appropriately. So I'm going to call that light colour a silver, and I'll call that silver base. And the one above is going to be black base, and the one above that is going to be D as for dark grey base. Okay, so I've got my 3 layers and I'm ready to start colouring. Now if you're short of time, I'll just show you the quickest way to colour this. Now because we know the lines are clean on this technique will work fairly well. But what you do is you click onto the original ink layer and you pick a colour, say your silver base. So you want all your silver base coloured in. And what you would use is this magic wand tool. You want your tolerance at 100%, and you'll go around this ink layer, clicking all the bits you want to be silver. So you will hold the shift key so everything adds on, additional, and by doing this you can just select all the areas, and then you'll go back to your silver layer. Let's see if I've got all the bits there. This can be quick, but I'll show you the drawbacks in a minute. So just colouring that arm, I'd flick back to silver base. I'd pick the colour I wanted to use, so say it's this. Press OK. So I've got that colour selected on silver base, and I go edit, fill, and I click foreground colour, and it will fill it. Now the drawbacks for this, I've missed a section there as you can see, but the drawbacks for this is Now, no matter how good you imagine that magic selection tool to be, it's always going to miss bits, and you'll be forever doing, like these bits here, they are white. So for instance, if I, let's just, I'll just select this so you can see, and I'll fill it with, let's just fill it with red for now. Okay, you can now see it has missed these sections here. So everywhere there's fine detail, you're going to end up missing stuff, and you'll get that all over, especially like these lips and things like that. You know, the magic selection tool might have trouble picking them up, even with these nice clean edges. So I tend to not rely on that, but it is an option if you're pushed for time and you don't want to use the technique that I usually use. So I thought I'd show you it. But anyway, we will remove everything off this layer, and I'll show you the way that I would draw this. Sorry, colour this. Now, first things first, we're going to go on how we're going to pick our colours. Now, I've said this in a few of my other tutorials, and I can't, you know, state this enough. How this has really helped me with colours. Now, my screen is a bit off, and I've probably said that in tutorials before. You've probably heard me say that. So what I do is I take the base colours off other pictures, so pictures that other people have done. So this is, I believe this is a professional Transformers illustration. I thought the colours are nice, clean, nice and flat, not too much variance in those colours, so I can use them. And so for the silver, I've just taken this pipette tool. Alternatively, you can hold the paintbrush and hold Alt. It will give you the pipette dropper as well. But if not, the pipette tool is just here. Click on it, and it makes it your foreground colour. Again, another way of doing this is if you click the foreground colour to pick, it will automatically give you the pipette tool, and you can pick it, and you can see it here. And then you can even adjust it if you want to, but I don't want to for now. I just want to keep it the same. So I've got the colour. So I will go back to our drawing. I will lock all other bases off because I don't want to accidentally click those and draw in those. And the only open one is now my silver base. Now I will take my pen. I will make 100% opacity. I make sure that pressure and size and all that are off. I don't need those. Increase the size, and what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to colour this in. Now you're better off, rather than, I'll just demonstrate this, when I'm colouring this, so I sometimes find myself trying to be careful and go towards the lines like that and not go over them. Now you are better off going over them than under them, because if you go under them, you've got to switch back to the brush to fill them in. Now you're going to be going to the eraser to delete those bits anyway, so you're better off going over. Okay, so that one panel was done. What I would do then, flick to the eraser, zoom in to make it easier, and using the eraser with, make sure you've got a solid brush. Like that, put size up, so you've got a nice solid brush, and I would hold shift and I would delete all along these lines. And holding shift allows you to draw these straight lines, like in the same way that I drew this Megatron. I used the shift key. Obviously making the brush small if you need to, like I just did. And make it bigger again as you need to as well. By the way, if you don't know how I'm getting that brush size adjustment menu up, it's just a right click anywhere, and it should bring it up for you. Okay, so that's coloured in. Now you can see what I said about the ink overlay. You can see how it's turned it into a dark grey. Now obviously, if I open the ink overlay and set it back to normal, you can see it's just filled it in. It's fine. So it's giving you the two options by having that ink overlay, but I quite like having it in overlay while I'm doing the drawing. You can see how you can adjust it to take some of those colours off. I like to have it over the top so I can kind of see what, you know, what it looks like with those coloured in. So have I missed a section there? That looks a bit white, so yeah, silver base, pen, drop the size. Oh. You might find you have to do this every so often. You have to go in small. Okay. If I'd been drawing this on paper, this would have been covered in shadows already. So say at the bottom of this arm would have been, I would have coloured that in black with the pen. So when that overlays on, it would have been a darker grey. So it would have automatically shaded that section. So you would have had a shaded look already. But as I'm just doing this straight on computer, I'm just going to show you how to fill in with the bases. It's not there now, but we will add this later. We'll add the shade. Okay, so I'm then going to go and do that now for all the silver parts, all the black base parts, and all the dark grey parts. But I am going to speed that up in the interest of time. Now, I'm not going to be using any different techniques to what I have just shown you there. So I'll be holding shift, clicking in straight lines and colouring in. What I might do occasionally is I will draw the outline. So I'll show you that quickly actually. So let's pick another silver part, just so you know. Okay, so this upper part of his arm, that's going to be silver. I'll show you what I'll do with that. This is probably what I'll do with most of it. Actually, with it being straight lines, this is a nice, easy technique. So again, you've got your pen, full opacity, whatever size you want. Just start inside the black line and holding shift, just click, 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 and what you are going to be doing is following that outline. Okay, so even though this is going to be grey, I'm just going to show you it's separate to that for now. So following the outline, and there we go. So you've got the outline, and as long as you've joined it up at the end, you can then do this. You can click the fill bucket tool over here. Make sure obviously you got your grey on your front colour, and just click inside, and that is automatically filled. Now that'll probably be the quicker way of doing it, and that's how I'm going to do it with all of them, rather than freehand it. Because of these straight lines, it's just going to make it easier. And you notice I don't have to go and do any of the deleting afterwards. So that's that done, and I am now going to time lapse and go through all of this, and I will do the silver, the black, and the dark grey. I'll add the red later, but I'll do the main big colours for now. So see you on the other side. Okay, so I've filled all those colours in now. You probably noticed a few times I messed up with which colours are going to be where. I was constantly flicking back to my reference material for the colours because there was bits I was missing. I mean, there's still bits I've messed up, like this is light silver here, whereas this is like a dark grey. So I'm just going to adjust that now. The way I'm going to do that is obviously I'm going to delete the bits in there in the dark grey, and then I'll colour them in the silver. So I'll just go ahead and do that. So basically I'm just going to use the erase tool with a shift, go around and delete all these bits. Well, I'm not even going to delete them, I'm just going to cut them. You see what I've done? I've cut them off from the rest of it, which now allows me to use the quick selection tool, that, and just delete it. So that's gone, and I'll just do the same with this bit here. So make sure you're not selecting anything when you do it. Again, eraser. Did I do all the way up to the... Yes, I did, yes. So I need to do that bit as well. Okay, so quick selection, do all that and that. delete. Then we'll go back to my silver base. I'll pick up the silver base colour from the Phi here, so pipette, there we go. And while I've got that selected, I can even just quick fill it. No, because I've got the eraser lines around it, so I'll just do it properly. Draw it round. Also, another problem you probably noticed when I was drawing, especially with the greys and the darker colours, with this being overlay, you can't see where they're going over the blacks too well. Only the lighter colours you can see, like these light silvers, you can see they go over, but and lighten them up. But the dark colours, like this grey here, is not. So I end up missing little bits like that. Dark grey. Pick this colour up and just colour it in. That's a problem. Now, one way of doing that is you could colour it a completely different colour to start with. So I could colour this all green if I wanted, and you'd see it go over. And then once it's all done, then change its colour to the colour you want. It's the same with these very darks, blacks. Look, I've missed bits because I can't see where I'm drawing over the black lines. If I actually remove the inks, you can see where obviously they go over the black lines, but where they miss. So that is one issue I had there. Right, I've got to colour these silver first before we move on. Get that silver base in. Where is it? There we go. Yeah, and just use the same colours over and over again. Don't just make them up. Don't know why that's zoomed up like that. That's like more bits I've missed now, like little white patches, and that's simply where I've not gone close enough to the edge. If you remember, I said you're better off going over the edge than trying to keep really neat inside, and that's why I'm missing these bits like this. So I'll flip to that one again, get that colour, draw it in, draw it in. Again there, look. So that one, and that is silver base. Draw that in. Again here. Right. Now, I didn't go ahead and do the reds, and I'm going to show you why. When you're doing the reds, Megatron has red eyes, for instance. You might be inclined to put all the reds on that red layer, like so the reds for his red eyes as well as the other ones. Now, while you can do that, the issue is at the end I like to do a glow on Transformers eyes. Now, you can't do that if it's part of the same layer. Well, the way I do it, you can't do it if it's part of the same layer as the rest, because then all the red bits will glow, which is not what I want. So to do the red bits, I'm going to have just red base, which is going to be just the body parts. So red base, and there'll be no eyes including that. I'll do the eyes at the end. I want them over the top, and I'll show you why at the end. So we'll go back and pick the red up. It's quite a nice red. Pick it up, come back, and then I'm just going to colour in the red. Now this won't take long, so I won't speed through this bit. But I like to keep it generally in the same colour scheme as the original G1s, but it is totally up to you. There are things that I will deviate on because I think it looks better. So let's fill this. You see, I've fallen from my own trap here. I haven't locked all these off, so I have to be careful that I don't draw and then. Okay, so I'll go back to the red base. See the red on this side. No, you can see this arm here. Now, with the red portions being behind all the other portions, I will move this layer down because basically I do not want the red overwriting any of the sections above. So to there, to there, to there. Okay, so with that all done, I will now move this down so it's below silver base. So I've got red base, silver base, black base, grey base, ink overlay. I'll probably move the silver base up over black base and over grey base. So the silver base is the top now. Right, so there. Oh, I've missed these bits. This is a rather large red portion. Now in this illustration I've got, they're not red, they're just dark grey. They're the inside of the handle for when he turns into a pistol. But I'm going to make them red on mine, because I've seen drawings with them red on theirs and I think they look better. So I'm going to just put those in as well. I'm on red base, yep, so I'm drawing on the right layer. You see the red totally overpowers the overlay, but when we put shade on that it won't be so much of an issue. With the overlay, the more darks you add, the more the blacks will show through. Missed a nice big portion there. Right, let's fill that in. Okay. Right. So there's the base colours done. Now from there we are now going to shade, and I'm going to show you how to do that. I'm just going to refresh myself on, make sure I've got everything I think I need to get. Okay, right, I'm happy with that. So we're going to go into shading. Now because you've got all these layers separate, this makes shading a lot easier, and I'll show you why. So first of all, to shade I will generally use a brush tool. Okay, and I will do flow and opacity wherever I want, so maybe 45% ish thereabouts, and quite often I will use a stylus if I've got it. Now you can do this with a mouse, it's no issue doing it with a mouse. The only thing is you won't get pressure sensitivity, so you have to go really low and you build it up. But with a stylus I've got pressure sensitivity, so I'm going to do that. Right, so I'm going to show you how I shade like the first grey area. So I'm going to do this forearm again. Now the beauty of having these layers separated, you can go onto your layers here, and you can see silver base. So it's the silver area I want to shade. So I'm going to hold Control and click the little thumbnail picture next to silver base. Now what that does, you'll see it's put a mask tool all around all the silver base. Now when I colour, let's just show you for an example, bright blue. Going to add a new layer, because that's going to be where we're going to be, and when I colour now it will just colour inside there, so I can go right up to the edges and shade, and it's not going to go and bleed into the white or into the other colours. Alright, anyway, so what I am going to do, I'll just delete that and show you exactly what I did. Right, so on silver base, I've clicked silver base, so I'm on silver base, and then I've clicked new layer down here, which again is another piece of paper, create new layer. So you click that and you're going to get the new layer. Now I'm going to rename that by double clicking on the actual name, silver shade. Okay, so now we've got silver shade, its own layer. We'll lock that red base off while I'm here. Silver shade on its own layer, quick selection on only on the grey areas. Now what you can do now is shade in here. Now to pick the shades, again you can come back to here and you can find the silver. So the silver I use as that, but if you look what they've used, quite a flat colour for the shade as well, which is that, or there. I mean they're all pretty identical, so I'm going to just use one of those. Right, now we've got this, I'm going to flick into the stylus and I'm going to shade this forearm. So remember I said earlier, I wanted the whole of this underarm dark, and obviously with the ink in stage I didn't do it on computer, so I'm just going to do it now. And when it darkens it, as you notice with the dark colours over the black lines before, it will darken those lines as well. And under the hand here, I'll show you here. Now what I'm doing here, I'm just, as I go along at the moment, But I forgot to mention, I'm doing the light coming from the upper right up here, so all the shade will be down underneath and to the left. Okay, so when you're shading, you got to just imagine it's a 3D object, and obviously this top half will be the light, and this underneath, where it's flat portion away from the light, will be dark. So I've done that, and now I want to go even darker. I don't think that's dark enough, so I'll flick that so I've got it, and then I'm going to go even darker. So okay, under hand here as well. Now that shade I've used for the thing, it's too blue for me. I know I took it off someone else's images, but that is too blue for me for what I want. So I'm going to go over that with a slightly grayer. Okay. Right. Now I'm going to add even darker than that one. I'm going to go almost into black. So we'll add that in. Again underneath. Now, if you've watched my other tutorials, you'll realise that I like to add two light sources. So I've got that one big one at the top, coming down from here. But I also like to add like a backlight, which that allows me to put a highlight lip on these. Now in a minute we are going to go into highlights, and you'll see how I use those. Okay, so that's the grey shade. Okay, and if you think it's too smeary, this over here is the smudge tool. It's under here with the blur tool, sharpen tool and smudge tool. You want the smudge tool, probably strength around 35% thereabouts. Be aware that if you use a big brush on this, it will slow down your computer probably, because the Photoshop really needs to think about what it's doing when it's using this. So it just slows down all the process. So you can just go along and you find you can control it. Look, control how the shade's going and where it's going to be. And this bit here, which I think is a bit smeary, I can go over with the smudge tool, and it'll improve some of that. Again, here you can even drag the shade up to the edges if you want it smooth up to the edges. Now put some more dark in here. I want this to be darker than his hand. Okay. Right, so that's the darks, and now we're going to go and do the highlights. So to do the highlights, again, you can go here and select where he's got a highlight on his silver. Now that doesn't look too blue, so I can probably get away with using that. So first you want to go quite low opacity, quite low flow on these, because the highlight will overwrite everything really quickly. And this is where I said about the backlight. You can actually put a bit of a shine on the lip, like that. You can go nice and small with this as well, because you can put some real highlights in like this. Even using the shift to draw straight lines if you want. I'll put the highlight on here. flipped of where his hand mechanism comes out. Okay, and then eventually the final step for that, I would always put a white on as well. So we got pure white, and anywhere I think there's a real highlight, I will put this white on. Using the mouse, you get a lot sharper highlights. It's not adjusting the pressure and sensitivity and all that while you're using the mouse. So and zoom out. Right, I need to put some highlights on this as well. I'll put a shimmer on this, so right in there like that, make it as white as possible, and use a smudge tool, make it smaller, and just bring it in like that. Okay. Get some of that dark in there as well. I'm holding shift when I shouldn't have. Use the mouse for this one. Just build that dark up on the inside. I want that to be a. I want this to be a ridge where the panel changes thickness. So I'll unselect everything, which you're safe to do because you've got these bases you can go back to and take it. There you go. So that looks okay. That's the level I'm going to go to now. I'm going to speed through the rest, and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so the basic shading is now done. If you was following that through, I've obviously sped through it, but if you was following it through, you probably noticed that I kept going back to the ink overlay layer. Now, the reason I did this is because with these black lines, the shading can look okay, but it can look better. Now, what I do is occasionally I will either make the ink overlay disappear to see if it stands as solid objects without the ink overlay, which I think it does. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is not going to be a painting. But also, so when I put it back on, I can also drop the opacity. Now this is what I was on about, the different colouring styles when you finish. Now I would intend to drop this opacity, probably usually around to the 50% mark, so that all the blacks that have been coloured over actually become the colours that they have been coloured over with. So for instance on the reds, there will be no red black lines anymore. They're red. They look a little bit black, but they're actually dark red. If I go to full opacity, you can see they're solid black. But anyway, I'll bring them down. Usually around, as I say, usually around 50%. And you can now see the final effect. Now, there's a few little bits that need touching at all. That was zoomed too far in. But just here, these edges need touching up a little bit here. So I'm just going to quickly just do that manually. So that would be silver base, silver, let's say silver shade. And just fill those with black, just to drop it. No need for that. Okay. Right, so while I think the colouring overall looks good now, the shading, there's a couple of effects I do to finish this off. Obviously I've got the eyes to do, but I will do those last because I will show you how to make those glow. But shading wise, there's two more effects that I would use, and that involves making two more layers. Now if you've seen my tutorials before, you will have seen what I'm about to do. Two more layers, and I'm going to call this one shadows, and I'm going to call this one highlights. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and make these both overlay. Okay, so first of all I'm going to work on shadows. Now with the shadows and highlights I will only work with black and white. So for the shadows I've got black, I want a fairly large pen, and I'm going to go for the pencil tool with full hardness, etc. Now what I'm going to be doing with this is just overlaying black for accentuated shadows. So you're going to see how I do this, and I'll just start doing it. The thing is with this, you can do this to the whole image. So what I would generally do, come down to your original ink layer, select the whole background, so you've got all the background, there we go, then select inverse, and now you've selected everything inside. Now I would then go back to shadows, take your pencil tool and just start applying shadows. Now these are just to accentuate how the dark certain areas are. Now the beauty of doing it like this is you're not going to affect your shading, so if you don't like something on this you can just delete it and it won't affect the shading. So I tend to like to do this afterwards because it's a safe addition where you can play and experiment and see what kind of effect you can get. Now you see that's really dark, and obviously I don't intend to leave it like that. I'll just show you what I'm going to do at the end, but I do it all dark for the time being. I'm going to drop that opacity probably down to about 50% again. So all black, and then we're just going to go over the whole image and do this. Now you see I've gone well over that because I just want to get the darks in. Now I will come back in and delete where I don't think they should be, but for the time being I'm just going to get them in. Probably want to make this brush a little bit smaller. You can see, because it's overlay, you don't lose any of that detail below either. So where I put those highlights in there, you can see they're still there. You can even do this with straight lines if you want. So if you want to use the mouse and do it, you just hold shift. You make them nice and sharp if you want. But it depends, you just play with it and see how you want it. I think when I did my Bumblebee, I did them all sharp. But what I'm intending to do with this, I'm intending to sharpen them with the eraser, and I'll show you how we do that in a minute. Right, so I think that's apart from his hand here. Quite hard to see on the hand though, to be fair. Okay, so we're going to go straight in now with the eraser. So eraser, you want it reasonably large, you want it definitely hardness 100%, and you're going to use shift again, like we did when we did the colouring round, and you're going to go around and delete the shadows where you don't think they should be. And you're going to tidy all the shadow lines up. Remember, if you want to go smaller, you can just go smaller to get certain details where you want to delete certain shadows. So you can still keep going back and applying shadows where you need to. For instance, I've missed this gun, so I'll apply those shadows. I'll have to go back to the eraser to clean them up. Obviously, the more complex you're drawing, the longer this process is going to take. But persevere, because I think it really makes a difference. Especially when you're doing like panels like this. There's ridges and the shadow drops over it. And this is going to be a lot of experimentation, especially if you've not done this kind of thing before. You're going to keep doing this and you're going to improve every time. So what I wouldn't say I'm a master again at this, but this is one of my techniques that I like to use. As a finalising way of improving an image. What it's quite useful to do is every so often just zoom out. Just zoom out and have a look, and your eyes will naturally tell you where shadows are wrong or where they can be improved. So just go with that and use it and test it, and just keep going back and forth and seeing how you get on. So obviously going back in again, eraser. This is almost a form of shell shading. I know people that do a lot of cell shading will tell me no, it's not. But I think it is. And you're doing it over the top of an airbrushed image. So I think it really helps. I think it goes really well. Remember being clean as you can when you're doing these. I'm doing these with a mouse, probably better with a stylus, but I'm busy doing a lot of straight lines as well, which I find better with the mouse. So. So you can see I'm zooming out again, having a quick look what I think. Yeah, I think that's improving. So back in again and do some more shadow erasing, sorry, erasure. Again, you can hide your ink overlay, see how the shadows lay. See that they're going to stand all right on their own, which means they're not too bad. So I'm giving these red portions a lip. Like that. So it's like an indented part. That was the plan with the shadows. I think that's worked quite well. Make a mistake and delete a bit too much shadow, again it's just a case of equipping the pen again and going back and just add a little bit more. And that's the beauty with this, with it being a separate layer. Easily done. And so I think I've missed a bit of shadow on the foot over here, so I'm just going to, as I say, pick the pen up, add it on. Not a problem, I can now adjust that as I need. Sloppy with the shadows on here, so let's get in close. Okay, probably knows I didn't put much on the gun because, let's be honest, it's black, so the shadows don't really show up much on it anyway. But try not to lose where you put the shadows, especially on the dark colours, because it's very hard to see them. Right, and the shadows in here, I want these holes completely shadowed. You see when I'm zooming in, I can actually see where the shadows are messy. So this process can take a while if you want to do it completely perfect, which we are trying to do here. We're trying to do it well. There's a full shadow on that side of his face. Okay, so that's the quick applied shadows I want to show. So you want to see what that looks like without that. That is the difference. Now I much prefer having that dark and contrast on there. You don't have to have it. If you're happy with when you get to this stage and you've airbrushed it and you think you're happy with that, you can leave it at that. But I much prefer this. I prefer the depth that these shadows give. And the same will be said for these highlights. Now with the highlights you're a lot more sparing. You don't just do the other half in highlights. What I tend to do with the highlights is only white, overlay again, and we'll drop the opacity after we start going. That's the other thing, sorry, with the shadows. You can do that as well. You can change the opacity. So if you want a really dark contrast like that, you can go 100%. You only want slight shadows, go down to 18 or something. But I'm quite happy around the middle ground, around 50% there. Okay. So anyway, back to highlights. So white, same pencil. This time you want to be going small, and you are definitely going to fade this out. Now you are not doing as much on this. You are only doing little highlights. So for instance, where you want some shine like that, just put it in there. Right. That was not very good. I'm going to use the pen for this. I like to be a bit more organic with this, and I'm going to thin my brush down. Okay. So these are pure whites you're going to be adding now. So try not to overpower the piece of it. Again, use shift if you need to. I'm drawing this on the shadows. This is the whole thing about locking. I don't listen to my own advice sometimes. So yeah, I'm going to go back to the highlight layer and we'll start again. again with its own layer. If you do something and you don't like it, it's fine, you can just adjust it. And basically you're just trying to pick up all the lips that would be picked up by the lights. No, that's not very good. Let's start that again. Okay, and it's just fine highlights. I think that shadow's a bit messy, so I'm just going to go back there and, yeah, remove some of that shadow. There we go. Alright, so back to the highlights layer. And these are not going to be as many as what you did with the shading earlier, so it's literally just going to be points there, just being hit by the light. Again, zooming out just to make sure you're not overpowering it and it's looking alright. So those highlights I think are looking okay so far. I'm going to keep going. Oh, what I'm doing, that was a mistake. Even if you put the highlights in the dark areas, it's not necessarily going to make them bright white like these other areas. It's just going to bring that shine out a little bit more of what you've already put there. That's all you're doing. You're just increasing the shine that you've already added with your detail earlier. This will not generally lighten black areas because it's only an overlay. Shadows. Again, drop back to shadows and delete stuff if you see stuff you think, oh, no, I'm not happy with that. And back to highlights. If you've got the hang of this, obviously fast forward past this bit. The reason I'm not just quick timing this bit is because some people might really want to see how this is done. So I say if you've got it, you can skip past by all means. But I'm going to carry on doing this for people that want to see it. Transformers. Yeah, any kind of machinery, these shines can really improve the final image, so it's best to get them in. I mean, up close they don't look like much, but obviously when you zoom out they make a big difference. Okay, so I think I've done it all there. I've done all the highlights there now. Oh, wait a minute. Obviously... So undo deselect. Obviously the gun's going to have some nice shine on it, so I need to really put some shine on that. And I'm going to do those perfectly straight, because as a machine that shine should be perfectly straight. I don't like that. It's too solid, too thin, sorry. Remove those, and I'm going to increase the brush size for this one. And do these smaller. So we're just putting the shine on the lip of the barrel. And I'll probably put a very thin shine on the back of the barrel. Okay, so there we go. So that is the highlights all done. That's basically most of the colouring done. Now, same with the highlights, you can adjust the opacity if you want to. If you think they're too overpowering, you can bring them down, and they'll still be visible all the way down, even on the blacks. But I quite like those bright and vibrant, so I tend to keep them up around 100%. So probably there, 82%. I think that's fine. Okay, so I'm going to save that. And now we're on to the final touches. Now, these will be things like putting the Decepticon logo on there and the eyes for Megatron. So I will go through that now and show you how to do that. So first of all, I'm going to do the Decepticon logo. This is really easy, so I'm going to just quickly go through that. First of all, you need a Decepticon logo. Now, I've drawn my own because I use these logos quite a lot, so it's quite useful to have them just ready-made, saved on your computer to pick them up whenever you want. So first of all, get yourself a Decepticon logo. If you don't want to draw it, I'm pretty sure there's loads of PNG files on Google Image Search. If you get one of those and save it as a PNG, so it's got the transparent background like this has, it makes your job a lot easier. Obviously, go for the higher res ones if you can. Alternatively, drawing your own is quite easy, and it just means you've got it there and you know you've done it. Okay, so Control on here to select all the parts. Control C to copy, or edit copy if you want to go that way. Okay, and then we're going to go back to our Megatron picture. Now I'm going to put it underneath the highlights and shadows because I want those overlaid on top of it if there is any. Now on his chest I don't think there is going to be any, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, so I'm going to edit, paste, or Control V if you want to do that, and you've got your logo. Right, first things first, Decepticon logo, I want it purple. Let's see if we've got any. Yep, so we've got the colour here, purple, on our reference piece, so I can use that one. Now, as we go back to here, we're going to double click the layer and click colour overlay. So when you're in there, you see it automatically goes to red. But if you click that red and take your dropper tool over to where you've got your purple at the front here, click that and it's done. Okay. Right. Now that's done, you want to shrink it to approximate size. So you probably want to get it down to, let's try there. Move onto the chest. I'm going to want it even smaller than that. Probably going to want it like that. Okay, so I'm going to double click the layer again. Apply the transformation first. Actually no, I'll transform it first. So I've got the layer, I've got it selected, and edit. Where's transform? Transform, and you want to go distort. Now distort lets you move these however you want. So start moving them so they're in perspective with the chest plate. Obviously experiment to make sure you keep the dimensions looking right. So when you get where you're happy with, so there, apply that transformation, then you double click the layer again, and now you can put strokes around it. So when you click stroke, it's instantly going to put a black stroke around it. Strokes are the lines that go around it. I always change this to white, and I bring it very small, so it's like that. Okay, so zoom back out, and that's the logo. You can go ahead and put a layer over the top of that and put shines and highlights. You can even emboss it using those layer properties if you want. Another good trick you can do, if I zoom in, you can put a gradient overlay. So you go down to gradient overlay, click that, and what you do is back in the color overlay, drop that to opacity to give it, drop the opacity to give it a shine. You can go back into the gradient overlay and change how you want that. If you want it in a different direction, like over there or over there, not a problem. You can even change the radial, and you can change the percentage of it then. But I'm going to go linear, and I'm going to go upright. well, towards the angle where I've got the light coming from, so there. Okay. Also, another thing you can do, if you think that stroke's overpowering, change the stroke mode to overlay, or you can even change the opacity and drop the opacity like that. Okay. So zoom back out. Yeah, and I think that looks pretty good. Right, so I'm just going to save that. Yeah, I'm going to rename that logo. Okay, right, now for the final part, the eyes. Now these are really easy to do, but you need to make sure you can see where you're going to draw the eyes in, because you're going to draw these in manually. So right at the top, over even the ink overlay, you want to make a new layer, call it eyes. Right, so I want the red from Megatron's eyes. Have we got a good red here? Not really, because it's a shine, so I'd probably just go for a normal red, maybe bog standard bright red. Okay, so get your pen and draw these in. Now you're probably going to want to draw these with straight lines again, so mouse and pen is fine. Didn't want to do that. Make sure they're the same size. Okay, so you've got your eyes. Now they're quite nice like that, just like red, but I like to make these glow. So first of all, I will double click the layer and I will click outer glow. Okay, and you can see it's put like a light yellow outer glow, but you want obviously the same color as what the eyes are, so I've clicked the red there. Now you're going to play with this and adjust, and you're going to see which is best for you. So if I increase the size and the spread, makes it a bit too much, so I'll bring that down again. So I quite like that, just to drop the opacity a bit. Okay, and then for the final thing, you want to put an inner glow on them. So you want to click inner glow, change it to white. Okay, and you want to do it so it goes from center rather than edge, because you want it glowing in the middle. Now you can play with this if you want. It's got a lot less control, but I quite like it generally as it is. I'll maybe drop the size a little bit there. I'm not going to change that choke. I'm not going to change the opacity. I'm going to leave it like that. Press OK and just zoom in and see what you think. So yeah, I'm quite happy with those. And as a final touch for those, you can even make another layer on top if you want. Make it an overlay. Drop the opacity, you're not going to want high opacity. Get your pen, make it very, very thin. Zoom in, and all around that head area, just put highlights in red. Probably put under the glow. Yeah, under the glow is better, sorry. Okay. And you can even fade those out even more if you want to. Okay, so save your work and you are done. Now, any of those steps that I've done through that whole process, you can spend a lot more time on those. You can refine them perfectly. I mean, you'll notice a lot of the shadows I did are very scrappy, especially when you zoom in. You can see it from this distance. It doesn't look too bad. It looks okay. But if you was going to print this on like on a massive canvas or something, you're going to want to make sure everything is tip top. You want everything nice and perfect. So just go ahead and take your time with it. Get it done properly. For me, I'm happy with this. This has worked perfect for a tutorial, and from a distance, I think that looks great. If you want to see about putting backgrounds on this, obviously I will do tutorials on that in future, but I have done that in the video 4 for my Bumblebee drawing picture, where I've put an Autobot logo behind him, etc. So you can look at that for now if you want, but obviously you can also wait for my proper tutorial for that. So thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, please click like. If you want to see more, because I'm going to add this as much as possible, this kind of stuff, please subscribe. And any feedback you got would be greatly appreciated, because I welcome all feedback and any chance to communicate with you guys. Well, thank you very much. If you want to follow me on Twitter and Facebook, I'm also on there, and see you later.